Welcome to the Jewel Church Accounting System training video on Choose Form 1099 payments. For many of you watching, this is what you see on your computer screen. The next step is Choose Form 1099 payments. Others watching this video are seeing this on their screen. They opted to go ahead and close December without doing the Choose Form 1099 payments. As noted in the year-end closing procedures training video, I showed you how you could bypass that step if you chose. If you are seeing January on your screen and it says Start New Offering, and this is the time that you need to do the 1099 choice of payments, select Reports and Graphs, select Form 1099 Payments here at the bottom of the screen, and at the top, select Choose Form 1099 Payments. Note that when you do this, the default is always to choose the prior year. In this screen, you will see two major sections to the screen: Vendors and Payments. Vendors is a list of all vendors that you have issued any payments to in the prior year, listed in descending order by total amount paid to that vendor throughout the year. As you highlight each vendor, at the bottom you see all the payments made to that vendor. Most of you will have the Georgia-Cumberland Conference at the top of your screen, as at the top of the vendor list, because that's where most of your disbursements went. At the bottom you might have payroll that was paid to the conference for locally funded payroll. You might have remittance reports. You will have remittance reports, I should say. You might have insurance payments. There are any number of things that you may have paid to the conference. In this particular church, in this sample church it is, the next highest paid vendor was the Adventist Book Center. Down below you will see the various check numbers, dates, account memo, the accounts, the memo, and the amounts paid. Neither of these should even be considered for 1099s because neither one relates to services rendered. The next one down is the electric company. Again, not a 1099 issue. The next is Dan's Variety Store. In each of these cases, you are looking at payments for product. 1099s are to be issued for payments for services rendered. As we go down through, the first one that I see that might be considered as a potential 1099 candidate is Cook's Pest Control. Cook's Pest Control issues a service. Here are the invoices, and you need to know a couple of things. First of all, you need to know, is Cook's Pest Control an incorporated entity? If it's not an incorporated entity and they provided a service, then you should probably go ahead and consider which of those invoices would be. So I would say this one, and this one, and this one. Then we get down to something here that says Adventist Ministries Outreach, and the first thing that comes to mind for me is I need to go back and edit that. That doesn't look like Cook's Pest Control. That looks like an error. So we won't check that because that would not have been a payment to Cook's Pest Control for services rendered. As we go down and check all the items that look like services rendered to Cook's Pest Control, we get to the bottom of the list and these items total $322. You will not need to issue a 1099 to Cook's Pest Control for that amount. let's go down to I'm a good worker. I'm a good worker had the job of cleaning the church, definitely a service rendered to the church, not a product. As we look at this, however, it looks like this $160 was for cleaning the church. This $64.96 does not look like cleaning services. That looks more like a reimbursement for supplies, which would be goods. So we would not put a check mark there. I'm going to check each of these weekly payments for cleaning the church. Now this does raise an interesting question. As an auditor, I begin to wonder if perhaps this person really should have been an employee, not an independent contractor. As you can see, I'm putting a check mark. Oops, here's a reimbursement. I'm going to uncheck that box because that definitely is not something that needs to be on a 1099. The one exception would be is if you had paid the $53.49 and the 100, let's say this $100 on one check, you had paid it together, then you would have to include it on the 1099. But when the reimbursement is a separate invoice and a separate payment, it does not need to be included on the 1099. On this one, it almost looks like it would be easiest to say select all and then go and uncheck the items that are reimbursements for products. So we'll go and uncheck this one. Now we know that we need to issue a 1099 for $4,220 because these were payments for services rendered and the total for the year is $600 or more. Let's go to the next one. Joe and Jan, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that last name. They did lawn maintenance work. And again, it looks like pretty much everything. So we're going to select all. And we're going to uncheck those items that look like reimbursement. This looks like a misposting of some sort. Literature and books. Maybe they're church members and they got reimbursed for PowerPoint. That's what it looks like. So they not only do maintenance work, but they do other things as well. They got reimbursed for weed killer. All the others look pretty much like reimbursement for services rendered or for lawn maintenance. Their 1099 will have a total of $3,125. The church school is not something that you would give a 1099 to. Let's go down to office supplies. Again, that's not, that's product. That's not services. Here's George Hire Me. And we have 4 checks to George, 3 of which were for contract labor. 1 was for reimbursement of materials. He will get a 1099 for $1,200. And so on down. U.S. Postal Service, Kids Press. Let's look and see what Don't Be a Fibber got paid for. He got paid for work on the basement. So yes, that's more than $600. So yes, we would do that. I should say $600 or more. Verna Guinness, she was a Bible worker and she got a reimbursement. So she got 1 check for Bible working. That was $250. The reimbursement does not get included because it was paid separately and it's for goods. It's not for services. Because her total is less than $600, you will not need to give her a 1099. David's Arts, Advertising and Graphic Design. This would be for a church sign. That's product. So you would not need to do a 1099. Here's Pastor Paul. It looks to me like Pastor Paul got reimbursed for storage containers, got reimbursed for fellowship hall supplies, Neither of those items would be includable because they were products, would be includable in the 1099. However, with pastor, we have a birthday gift and gift of appreciation to the pastor. Now, why would we need to give a 1099 for $400 to the pastor? And the reason is the pastor is an employee of the church, the conference. The church is part of the conference. The pastor is an employee of the conference. Therefore, the IRS says that there is no non-taxable gift of appreciation that can be given to an employee. Only consumable or very small gifts are non-taxable to employees. So because the pastor received gifts from the church, gifts that were given either directed by the church board voted to give these gifts, or there was a collection made from a bunch of people. And there are a couple of problems here that we probably won't go into in detail, but be aware that gifts given designated for an individual person are non-tax deductible to the giver of that gift. And all gifts given to employees are taxable because the conference payroll is run at the conference, not at the local church level. The church should give the pastor or any other church employee that they give gifts to through the church treasury system there needs to be a 1099 given there. Let's go to Eric Hare. Eric Hare got a speaker honorarium. That is a services rendered, and therefore that would be subject to a 1099. It's right on the threshold, but remember the threshold is $600 or more. You're required to give a 1099, so you would put a check mark in that box. Maranoff and Volunteers is a service organization. And then we get down to smaller amounts than 600. So we don't even need to look at it once the amounts paid to these vendors drops below 600. We can now say, okay, and here's our report of those vendors who the church is required to issue a 1099 to. Note that Jewel does not print 1099s, but simply gives you this tool for assisting you in selecting who you need to give a 1099 to.